I woke up after 4 years in a coma, but my husband had already let another woman wear my clothes, put on my jewelry, and sleep on the very bed that once belonged to me. And the very first words out of my mouth left him speechless. If it were you, would you choose to forgive, to take revenge, or to disappear? If you woke up in that moment, what would you say? I am Olivia, the one who once loved without limit, only to wake up and say one sentence, let's get a divorce. I pulled my hand out of James's grasp, my husband, and let my eyes sweep over him calmly. In 4 years, he was no longer the impulsive young man with startup dreams. The fitted navy suit, the neatly combed hair, the steady tone of his voice, all of it shaped the image of a successful man, a powerful executive. James froze, his dark brown eyes widening, as if my words had struck him like a stray bullet. He leaned forward, his voice gentle, almost pleading. Olivia, what's going on? I was busy in a meeting. I couldn't come right away. Is that why you're upset? His hands reached out to touch me, but I shifted slightly, avoiding him. I shook my head, lips pressed tightly together. I'm not upset. My voice was dry. But beneath the blanket, my hand clenched so hard it turned white. My chest tightened, as if my heart was being squeezed by everything I had heard, everything I had known, in those days when I lay between life and death. The hospital door swung open, cutting through my thoughts. A young man rushed in, his face full of worry. Mr. Carter, Mr. Carter, he called, his voice trembling, sweat gathering on his forehead, his anxious eyes flicking toward me before locking back on James. James frowned, his gaze sharp as a knife. The young man instantly fell silent, hurried to his side, and whispered something. I sat there in the hospital bed, the thin gown clinging to my skin, and even though his voice was low, I still caught a name, Lily Harper. Miss Harper already knows, he said, his tone low but sharp enough to pierce through the silence of the room. Those two words cut into me like a blade, not deep, but enough to make me bleed. Lily Harper. That name, though I had heard it countless times in the fog of my unconscious days, still burned bitter in my chest. In the long stretch of coma, I had caught whispers from the nurses and James's phone calls at my bedside. I knew he had betrayed me. Lily Harper was his mistress. At first, James treated her as a replacement. While I lay there, unmoving, he turned to Lily to fill the void of loneliness and the needs he could not suppress. Lily knew well she was the other woman. She knew James had a wife fighting to survive in intensive care. But she still stepped in, because her grandmother needed surgery, and James, with his thick wallet, was the lifeline. I did not blame her. But that did not stop my heart from aching. Then they fell in love. What began as meetings to ease desire slowly became something deeper. His voice softened whenever he said Lily's name over the phone. They grew attached, while I lay trapped in my own body. And then I woke up. When the young man left, gently closing the door with a faint click, my eyes drifted away from the window. Outside, skyscrapers rose high, their outlines blurred under the late afternoon sun, no longer the familiar city from 4 years ago. Just like the man in front of me, more handsome, more successful, with a polished smile and calm gestures, he was no longer the boy I once loved so fiercely. He leaned closer, his voice still soft like a breeze. When you get better, I'll take you out. His words were sweet, but they felt distant, as if I were nothing more than a fragile dream that could vanish with the slightest gust of wind. Perhaps he had forgotten the old days when we were together, always bickering loudly yet joyfully. No secrets, no distance, just laughter and hugs so tight they nearly stole our breath. Now, this polite tenderness was only a shell, a kind of unfamiliarity that made my heart go cold. I gave a faint smile, a shadow across my lips, and repeated, my voice steady but firm, "Let's get a divorce." James started to speak, but I raised my hand to stop him, my fingers trembling slightly from the weakness of recovery. "Thank you for taking care of me these past years," I continued, my tone calm, as if I were reading a contract. "The medical expenses can be deducted directly from my share of the company profits. We owe each other nothing." He awkwardly reached out, wanting to hold me close. "Why, Olivia?" His voice cracked, bursting like a broken dam. "Do you know what I went through these 4 years? Why do you want a divorce the moment you wake up?" And he lunged forward, clutching me tightly, his shoulders shaking uncontrollably. I knew. I knew everything. During the endless days of my coma, I had heard, sensed through the nurse's whispers, through the phone calls he took by my bedside. I knew he once hired the best team of nurses, immaculate in white uniforms, their hands moving swiftly to change IV tubes, to clean my body with the care of tending a treasure. I knew he once knelt by my bed each night, whispering prayers. But I also knew he had been tender with Lily. Those stolen kisses, those midnight walks under shooting stars in the park, where he held her hand and whispered the same sweet words that once belonged to me. He took her to admire the scenery, to make wishes under a glittering sky, while I lay here, unmoving like a corpse. "James, you must understand, it wasn't only your love that time wore away. The more I knew, the more I let go. Now, I no longer cared. The pain had numbed, turning into a cold hollow inside my chest. As he held me, through the half-closed door, I caught a glimpse of a red dress. Red. The color I once loved most. The color of life. The dresses I wore when I danced with James. Lily was nothing like me. She was a fragile, gentle flower, preferring soft pastel shades. I remembered, from the whispers I had overheard, how when James tried to make her wear my clothes, the old dresses in my wardrobe, Lily had stubbornly pushed him away, her voice sharp. "I am not her." But later, it wasn't just the clothes. Everything that was mine, Lily quietly accepted. She wore my clothes, my jewelry, and slept with my man, in the very house we had built together. She almost became me, a distorted replica, living the life I missed while trapped in my coma. But I am me, Olivia, with my own fire, unwilling to be replaced, refusing to accept being replaced. My life was never meant to revolve solely around James, repeating endlessly that tragic play of love and betrayal, where love turned into burden. James whispered into my ear, his voice warm but soaked in tears. "Olivia, don't leave me again. From now on, I'll take care of you properly." His tears seeped into the fabric of my hospital gown, hot, as if trying to burn through the ice in my chest. Long ago, my father used to stand on the balcony, his voice deep and stern, a cigar in his hand, demanding I break up with James. He said, eyes full of worry, "He's a good man, Olivia, but with him, you'll suffer." Back then, I was naive, untested by life, and I defended James passionately, my voice high. "I'm not afraid of suffering. Loving him is the sweetest thing in the world. If you say he's not good enough, then I'll build a better future with him. I truly believe love can do everything." With youthful fire, I gave up everything, starting a business with James in a cramped little room, where the smell of burnt coffee mixed with the sound of keyboards clattering deep into the night. My father despised James, and I rejected all of his help, his money, his connections. I, the girl who had never washed her own clothes, who had never needed to please anyone, could now smile politely across a table of wine, raising a glass to stubborn investors just to secure a contract. Back then, James felt both moved and grateful, crushing me into his arms, whispering, "Olivia, I'll take care of you for the rest of our lives. I promise." And truthfully, James didn't lie. He came every day. He held my hand, telling me stories about the company. But 4 years was too long. A chasm. His visits shifted from daily to weekly to rarer still. Later, sometimes a whole month passed without him showing up, the phone buzzing with calls from Lily instead. Time and another woman gradually soothed the guilt and love he once had for me, the stolen kisses, the romantic trips he once promised me. But time was cruel, trapping me in those 4 years past, when I loved James the most, loved him enough to sacrifice everything. On the days he wasn't there, I lay silently, numb, enduring loneliness, my body immobile but my mind awake, listening to every tick of the clock on the wall, every sigh of the nurses. And James, surely with Lily, laughing, holding her, giving her everything that I no longer had. James thought sleeping with another woman was compensation for me, that it was his way of enduring the pain. How ridiculous! I looked toward the half-closed door. Lily Harper was standing there, her slender figure flickering in the dim hallway. In the end, she could no longer hold herself back. She stepped inside, the sound of her heels tapping lightly on the floor, echoing like an offbeat heartbeat. Her eyes were red, yet she forced a smile, a fragile mask stretched thin. "Hello, Mrs. Smith," she said, her voice clear but trembling. "I'm Mr. Carter's assistant. I'm glad you've woken up." She called me by my last name, as if deliberately erasing the truth that I was James's wife. James flinched, his voice startled. "Weren't you supposed to be on a business trip?" His eyes flicked quickly toward me, dark brown irises flashing with worry and guilt. But not for me, for Lily. His tone turned stern, almost commanding. "Go home, Lily!" The words were firm, but his clenched fists betrayed a storm he was trying to contain. Lily ignored him, stepping closer, her elegant white dress swaying softly. "James, why didn't you tell me Mrs. Smith had woken up?" She tried to sound cheerful, but her voice wavered, like a song off key. "See, I didn't even have time to prepare a gift." Tears filled her eyes, glistening under the hospital lights. She stood there, shoulders trembling, as if her whole body was about to break. Unable to endure it, she covered her face and fled, her heels clattering urgently, fading into the hallway. James instinctively stepped back, his body turning, one foot ready to follow her. But he froze. He turned back toward me, lips moving without sound. His eyes wavered, torn between two worlds. Me, the wife who had just woken after 4 years in a coma, and Lily, the woman who had filled his emptiness. The silence between us was suffocating, heavy like the air before a storm. Thankfully, a nurse entered, her gentle voice breaking the tension. "Mrs. Smith just woke up. She needs rest," she said, her hand adjusting the IV line in my arm. James nodded, but his eyes still lingered on the door where Lily had vanished. "Olivia, rest now," he said quickly, his tone hesitant. "I'll be back later." He left, his footsteps rushed, avoiding my gaze as if afraid my eyes would strip away the truth. From the window, I saw him in the hospital courtyard, his tall frame standing face to face with Lily. She raised her hand and slapped him hard across the cheek, the sound carrying even from a distance. James didn't dodge. He simply stood there, then suddenly pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. Their bodies merged into one silhouette, intimate, like a painting that had no place for me. I turned away. I didn't need to see more. I borrowed the nurse's phone, my fingers fumbling across the unfamiliar screen. 4 years had changed technology, but she patiently showed me how to call. I dialed Anna, my best friend, and her voice came through, full of disbelief. When she realized I had truly woken up, just hours later, Anna was there, rushing into the room and embracing me tightly. We laughed, we cried, our emotions colliding in a flood of relief and sorrow. Then Anna sat down, her eyes turning serious. "Olivia, James has a mistress," she said, her voice low, as if afraid of hurting me further. "What are you going to do?" I looked out the window. 4 years in a coma had taken many things from me, but not everything. I smiled faintly, my voice firm. "I don't need him, Anna." "I'll still live well, won't I?" I returned to the apartment that had once been my home with James, the wheelchair wheels squeaking against the wooden floor. Anna, my best friend, pushed the chair, her worried eyes glancing at me. I pressed my fingerprint to the lock, the cold beep echoing before the door opened, revealing a space that felt both familiar and foreign. My breath caught as my eyes swept across the living room. The wedding photo of us, once hanging proudly with radiant smiles, was gone. In its place hung an oil painting, the moonlit sea glimmering with soft yet cold brushstrokes. Lily's work, their first seaside trip, under the excuse of business. That night, on the beach, with candlelit dinners glowing. Romantic, yet dangerous. A night of drunkenness leading to a mistake, but in truth, a carefully arranged plan. And when emotions surged, James called my name. James had never confused me with anyone before. But where was I then? Lying on a cold hospital bed, with only the moonlight gently brushing my face through the window. When James and Lily entwined, did he think of me? Of course he did, but not out of love. He fancied himself faithful, using my name to embellish their joy, as if I were a ghost haunting his new life. My stomach twisted, my body folding against the wheelchair. Anna hurried to steady me, her voice anxious. "Just grab your things and leave, Olivia. The doctor said you shouldn't get emotional." I nodded, breathing deeply, fighting the ache rising in my chest. I steered the chair toward the safe in the corner, unlocking it. Inside were my IDs, savings book, the deed to the apartment, the things I once thought were the foundation of a shared future. I planned to leave James a note, a short message. "I'll change my number. When I recover, we'll file for divorce." But when my eyes drifted to the sticky note on the fridge, I froze. Neat handwriting read, "Let's have pizza and salad tonight." Beside it, a messy smiley face, Lily's pen strokes. So she had been here often, in the apartment I designed, in the space once filled with my laughter and James's. I remembered the old days, when he would carefully ask what I wanted to eat, prepare ingredients early, then stand in the kitchen, sweat beading on his forehead, grinning, "I only cook for Olivia." And yet, in 4 years, he had forgotten every promise, letting another woman walk freely into the home we built. In truth, James probably wished I would remain in the hospital forever, that a burden like me would disappear so he could have a better ending. Perhaps in a few years, he would pull the plug on my life support, cook only for Lily, and live in this apartment as if I had never existed. When people make vows, they always believe them to be eternal. But hearts change in an instant. I looked around the apartment one last time, my gaze drifting across the cold emptiness. The tiny trinkets I once collected, the decorations I carefully chose, all gone. Only vibrant flowers bloomed on the window ledge. My books sat dusty on the high shelf, shoved into a corner. while the study had almost become her studio. Boxes of bright paints gleamed under the light, but they only made me feel frozen, as if my entire world had been erased, wiped away as easily as dust. Anna pushed the wheelchair in one last loop, the wheels squeaking, like the misplaced rhythm of my heart, beating in the wrong place for far too long. Unfortunately, just as I was about to leave, James came back. The door swung open, and the four of us stood face to face. Yes, 4 people. Lily clung tightly to James's waist, one hand sliding under his shirt, the other tugging at his belt. She tilted her head up, her red lips curling. She's been bedridden for 4 years, thin as a corpse. Tell me, am I prettier than her or not? My awakening had become fuel for their desire. I could imagine, if I hadn't been there, what would have followed would be another feverish night, just like the ones they'd spent tangled together in this very apartment. James froze, his eyes widening when he saw me. "Olivia, what are you doing here?" His voice faltered, sweat beading on his forehead, his reddened eyes like a man cornered. Lily looked up, our eyes locking. A flicker of triumph flashed across hers, as though she had already won. She pulled James even closer, but before she could flaunt any further, he shoved her away hard. Lily tumbled to the floor, her white dress twisted, looking pitiful, like a discarded doll. James rushed toward me, so frantic he slipped, sprawling on the wooden floor. He crawled toward me, like a stray dog without a master. "It's not what you think. Please, listen to me." He clutched my hand tightly, his palm still warm, as if holding on could drag me back to the days of love. But my heart was frozen, an iceberg that would never melt. Even now, he wanted to explain. Was it really an explanation or just another lie? Like when he whispered my name in moments of intimacy with Lily. If I had woken without these memories of betrayal, if I were still the blindly loving Olivia Smith, seeing them together in front of me, how could I not have gone mad? But now I only looked quietly into his eyes. Once, I was the spoiled, stubborn, straightforward daughter. Every time we fought, when James tried to reason, I would yell, "I don't care! It's always your fault." He would smile, soothe me gently, pull me into his arms until I laughed again. But now I wasn't angry. I smiled, a light smile. "Mr. Carter," I said evenly, "we're about to divorce. You don't need to explain anything." James's face drained of color, his pupils shrinking as if stabbed. "What? Did you just call me?" His grip on my hand tightened, his fingers trembling, as though letting go would mean losing me forever. "You're insane! Let go!" Anna cut in sharply, her eyes icy, noticing me flinch from pain. She stepped forward, trying to pry his hands off, but he clung tighter, his gaze on me like he would devour me. "Olivia, stop talking about divorce," he begged. My body was still weak from waking up, exhaustion pressing down. "Mr. Carter, I need to rest." The agony was plain on his face. "How can you speak of divorce so easily?" "Did our love mean nothing?" Anna sneered, her voice as sharp as a blade. "It did! It meant he got another woman. You cheated, James." She pointed straight at Lily, who had risen, her dress disheveled, her eyes mocking James. "Explain," Anna continued, cold as ice. "Explain why she moved into your home. Why, even after your wife woke up, you still kept her." Each of Anna's words struck like a hammer, leaving James's face pale. He didn't dare look at me, his eyes darting away, lips fumbling. I didn't." Then he turned to Lily, shouting, "Get out! Get out now!" Lily's fragile frame shook at his roar. She staggered, running out, her heels clattering down the hallway, not looking back. When her figure vanished, James turned back to me. From the beginning to the end, all I ever needed was you. He lowered his head, and though I couldn't see his expression, memories of the accident flooded back. That day, we had been fighting. James drove, silent, his hands gripping the wheel, his lips pressed tight, swallowing his anger. I turned away, looking out the window, refusing to face him. The car sped up. Brakes screeched like a scream tearing through the air. Before I could even feel the pain, my consciousness drowned in darkness. But just before passing out, I felt his arms clutching me tight, his desperate voice in my ear. "Olivia, please, don't leave me!" His tears burned hot against my cheek, as if trying to hold me back from the abyss. Back then, James didn't realize that though he kept me alive, his heart already belonged to someone else. I reached out, gently smoothing his messy hair, my fingers brushing through the strands, as if touching the man I once loved. "James," I said softly but coldly, "when you held Miss Harper, did you remember how I looked, dying in your arms?" James's head snapped up, his eyes flashing with confusion and desperation. He opened his mouth, but no words came, as though my question had strangled all excuses. I smiled faintly, adjusted his hair one last time, then withdrew my hand. "Your feelings for Miss Harper are your business," I continued, my tone steady, like reciting a contract. "But I have principles. We should end this cleanly. The company shares, the joint assets, the car, the apartment. Let's have lawyers divide them clearly." Anna pushed my wheelchair, the wheels creaking across the wooden floor, gliding past James. He stood frozen, like a shattered statue. As we neared the elevator, his voice rang out suddenly, urgent and furious. "You want to split everything so you can run back to your childhood, friend. Ethan Brooks, isn't it?" I froze, my breath catching. "You claim my cheating is the reason, but that's just your excuse," he nearly shouted. "My father had once wanted me to be with Ethan, the man from a wealthy family, with business ties to ours, but I stubbornly chose James, chose love over arrangement. Our last fight before the accident had been about Ethan, too. Our company was stable then, and Ethan had brought us a major contract, promising great opportunities. I had been excited to tell James, but he exploded, insisting I refuse. I knew his pride, his need to prove himself, especially after my father's death, when he promised me the best life. We had registered our marriage, though never held the wedding, but Ethan's help wounded James's pride. Business required give and take. We had once swallowed our pride to raise funds, yet at the mention of Ethan, he grew strangely obstinate. I kept asking why, until he erupted. "Is it for the company, or do you just want to be near Ethan? Being with me, you regret it, don't you?" Those words crushed my heart. I had stood by him through the struggles of starting out, the exhaustion, the nights I cried alone, yet he accused me of regret. Stubborn, I turned away, silent tears falling, waiting for his apology. I thought if he was sincere, I would forgive. But he sped up, the car hurtling forward, and then 4 years of coma, a man who betrayed. I turned my face away. Silence was the only choice left. Anna, unable to endure the slander, stepped forward, her gaze sharp as a knife. "You're insane! Ethan's been married for years. Don't assume everyone cheats just because you do." I tugged her sleeve, signaling her to push the wheelchair into the elevator. The bell chimed, the doors slid open, and the cold light from inside fell across my face. James stumbled after us, his voice echoing down the hall, desperate and angry. "Olivia, I didn't mean what I said. I don't agree to divorce. Without me, you can't survive. Live without him? There was a time I saw James as my only reason to live, like a flame warming me through the coldest days. Back then, leaving him felt impossible. But in this world, no one leaves anyone and fails to survive. I remember my early years, when my family was no longer a perfect picture. Both my parents remarried. Before marrying my mother, my father already had a son, my half-brother. After marrying, my mother gave birth to me, and my father cherished me like a treasure, holding me gently through every step. But when I was 16, my mother passed away, leaving an emptiness nothing could fill. My father remarried again, and my stepmother entered with strict rules, trying to mold me into a proper rich family's daughter. My half-brother took control of everything in the household, and my place grew lost. I still had beautiful clothes, never lacked money, but the warmth had vanished, and I didn't know what I truly wanted until I met James. The first time was at a charity gala hosted by the Smith family. I stood beside my brother, awkwardly learning how to socialize, wearing a lavish yet heavy gown. James, a server, with a crisp white shirt and a tray of drinks in hand, had eyes that burned bright. After the event, he stopped my brother, his voice full of passion, pitching his startup idea, asking for investment. My brother rejected him flatly, his eyes cold. I stood there, noticing the brief flicker of disappointment on James's face, but he still smiled, gentle and steady, as if nothing could bring him down. James didn't give up. He kept seeking out my brother, again and again, though never with success. Gradually, through those encounters, he and I grew closer. I learned he studied at the same university as me, 1 year ahead, but on a different campus. I admired his unyielding will, a man from an ordinary background daring to dream big. Admiration turned into affection, and for the first time, my heart beat for love. When he confessed, I said yes, despite my father's disappointed eyes. My father sneered, his voice sharp as a blade. "There are plenty of poor boys like him dreaming of climbing high, Olivia. What you think is love is just a springboard for him." I once doubted, did James come to me because of the Smiths? But when we were together, he never mentioned investment for my family again. He chose his own path, brave and resilient. His company gradually grew, and I wanted to prove to my father, without the Smith family, I could still build a future with James. We leaned on each other, pushing through hard days. Everyone thought we would never part. Now James has Lily, and I have learned to stand on my own. I took a deep breath, my fingers gripping the wheelchair armrest, and called my half-brother. After 4 years of no contact, his voice on the phone was as cold as ever. "Do you need to come home and rest?" "Number just calling to tell you I woke up." "Fine." He paused, then said, "Then transfer to the family hospital." A private hospital under the Smith conglomerate, a place James couldn't reach. I agreed. The next day, I moved, and from the window of my new room, I saw James standing beyond the garden wall, his tall figure faint under the sunlight. He watched me reading or walking in the garden, but I pretended not to see. One evening, I sat in the garden, gazing at the sparkling stars. The breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass. Suddenly, dozens of small drones flew in, glowing like falling stars, spelling out, "Olivia, I'm sorry." Then they shifted, forming, "Give me a chance to make it right." The quiet night at the hospital turned into a spectacle. Patients and nurses gathered, pointing, whispering, some even clapping. I stared at the words, my heart tightening, not from being moved, but from the irony. To avoid more disturbance, I agreed to meet him once. I held a cup of warm water, steam blurring his face. I had heard he'd been lingering around my brother's company, asking to see me. Strange. When I was in the hospital, his visits dwindled, as if he wanted to erase me from his life. Now he was frantic to meet. Why? "Let's not fight anymore, Olivia. Come home, I'll cook dinner." I remembered the old days. Every time we quarreled, he would take the blame first, then cook a feast. I once loved that simple happiness, but now it meant nothing, like a song whose melody had faded. I set the cup down, porcelain clicking softly on the table. Looking him straight in the eye, I asked, "Do you think I'm sulking?" James hesitated, then rushed to say, "I swear, I was just too lonely and made a mistake. I fired her, Olivia. For the rest of my life, I only want to be with you." His eyes were sincere, as if he placed his whole heart in those words. I lowered my gaze, unable to stop a mocking smile. "James," I said coldly, "then what about her living in my apartment, wearing my clothes?" The question hit like a slap, draining the color from his face. His eyes blinked rapidly, searching for an answer. "I'll buy new ones," he blurted, urgent. "You want your own villa, right? We can go buy one right now." Those desperate words almost shook me, but then I asked, "And if Miss Harper is pregnant with your child?" James froze, his face ashen. "Never!" he almost shouted, stepping forward, gripping my hand tight. "I only want to have children with you. I don't want to lose you again." He rambled, clutching me as if afraid I would vanish. But I knew the truth. Lily was already pregnant. James thought he could keep it from me forever. I don't force anyone. But if he wanted a war, I wouldn't back down. I nodded, a faint smile on my lips. "Fine, I can forgive you. Unless— Unless what?" His eyes lit with hope, like a drowning man grabbing a rope. "Unless you transfer all company shares into my name," I said evenly, "and take back everything you gave Lily." James went silent, his breath caught, his eyes wavering. I chuckled softly. "Can't bear it, can you?" He looked at me, his voice wounded. "You don't trust me anymore, do you?" How laughable that he still spoke of trust. I didn't answer, only stared at him, my eyes ice cold. Finally, he nodded. "Fine, I agree." A week later, James brought me a list of assets: cars, handbags, jewelry he had given Lily, all reclaimed. He carefully handed me the list, every item recorded clearly, each gift noted with the occasion. I skimmed the list, then lost interest. "Lily didn't make a fuss?" I asked flatly. "She didn't dare," James muttered, eyes down. I smiled for the first time in that meeting and gently embraced him. "You're still good to me like before," I said softly. "And the company shares, when will you transfer them to me?" James froze, his eyes shifting. "The company has a new project. It's busy." "Can we handle the shares later? I'll give you $5 million. Buy whatever you want." He slid a bank card across the table, his hand trembling slightly. I took the card, smirking. 5 million, compared to half the fortune I'd get in a divorce. It was nothing. I couldn't tell if he feared losing me or losing money. Perhaps he wanted both, me and Lily, like some greedy game. "I've almost recovered," I said lightly. "When I'm discharged, I'll come to the company to help you." James flinched, instinctively shaking his head. "Rest. Let me earn." "You've lost weight." He changed the subject, talking about missing me, his words sweet but hollow. I grew impatient, cutting him off. "I want to come to the company." He looked at me, eyes wavering, then nodded. "All right. Starlight Tech was founded by both of us. If you want to come, then come." Starlight Tech. In the beginning, it was only 3 tiny rooms, freezing in winter, stifling in summer, the conditions terrible. James and I once sat side by side, typing late into the night, sweat beading, dreaming of a bright future. But now, that future no longer had a place for me. On the day I returned to the company, I wore my favorite red dress. My makeup was flawless, my lips a vivid crimson. I loved the radiance and vitality in myself, and it had nothing to do with anyone else. Starlight Tech was no longer 3 shabby little rooms. An entire skyscraper in the middle of Manhattan now belonged to James. Having been notified beforehand, the receptionist greeted me respectfully, escorting me straight up to the CEO's office. James was waiting, introducing me to the department heads. Faces I didn't recognize. None of the colleagues who once built this company with us from the ground up. They nodded, smiled brightly, but their eyes flickered with mockery, as if I were nothing more than a decorative piece on display. I understood why when I entered the break room, the door half closed, letting slip their whispers. Two female staff stirred their coffee, the clinking of spoons against porcelain punctuating their sharp tones. She's really lucky, isn't she? 4 years in bed and she wakes up to a husband who's now a billionaire. The other replied with pity in her voice. Poor Miss Harper, working alongside Mr. Carter all these years, and in the end, it all belongs to someone else. They spoke as though I had done nothing but become the wife of a rich man. And Lily, the mistress who replaced me, was the wronged woman, as if I were the one who stole her place. I pushed the door open, the creak of the hinges making them both jump. Their spoons clattered onto the table, eyes darting away, refusing to meet mine. I rolled my wheelchair toward the fridge, took out a soda, twisted the cap, the hiss breaking the silence. I smiled, my voice light yet cutting. Go on, keep talking. I like listening. Their mouths opened, but no words came. Their faces pale, stripped of all the boldness they had moments ago. What's there to be shy about? I continued, sipping the icy fizz as it slid down my throat. If you want to defend Miss Harper, at least be brave enough to say it out loud. Just then, James rushed in, his eyes scanning the room anxiously. Seeing me facing the two employees, his brow furrowed. Olivia, is something wrong? I tilted my head, my smile unchanged. I'm fine. These two were simply upset on Miss Harper's behalf. You handle it. James stiffened, then turned to the women. That very day, both of them were dismissed from the company. In James's office, sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting lines across his face, still as handsome as ever, yet now only making him seem distant. He sat down, his voice low. Olivia, from now on, I won't let any rumors exist in this company. I promised those vows. I had heard them too many times since I woke up, repeated again and again, like an old, worn-out song. I looked at him, the light and shadows crossing his features, and for a moment I wondered, should I give him another chance? I lifted his face, my fingers brushing his chin, feeling the familiar warmth. James, I asked, my voice soft but sharp, have you truly ended things with Lily? He gripped my hand tightly. And have you honestly transferred everything into my name, with nothing hidden, no lies? I didn't answer, only looked at him, because if he still wanted to deceive me, then there was nothing left to say. Whatever the outcome, it would be his responsibility to bear. Not long after, the company ran into a capital chain problem. Several major game projects that had been heavily invested in were halted midway, causing massive losses. Products were completed but not yet released, bringing in no revenue. James let out a heavy sigh, collapsing onto the sofa, his hand rubbing his forehead. I sat beside him, flipping through the financial reports, my fingers tracing the glaring red numbers. The stock price has dropped that much already? I asked. Dropped so badly the company's nearly bankrupt, isn't it? James nodded, his eyes staring into the distance. Yes, it's still falling. He handed me reports from the past 2 years. If we sell now, it's still manageable, he said, voice hesitant. If we hold on, we'll lose even more. I smiled reassuringly, placing my hand on his shoulder. It's all right. Once this phase passes, it'll be fine. But he shook his head, his eyes darkening. It's not about time. The direction itself is wrong. Starting over would cost too much. Better to sell. I studied him, searching for deceit in his eyes. There was none. He was so convincing it made me feel cruel. James, how good your acting has been. From the beginning, you were acting, weren't you? The bitterness spread in my mouth, but I kept my expression gentle. Have you finished negotiating with the buyer? He nodded heavily, his voice weary. Yes. It's for the best. I'll have more time to be with you. I smiled faintly, my eyes passing over him, saying nothing. James pulled me into his arms, the warmth once familiar now, only making me cold. I adjusted my expression and asked, "Which company is buying?" "A real estate firm. They want to diversify." He asked if I wanted to see the contract. I declined. "It's all your decision." Then, with a forced cheerfulness, he asked, "Can I go with you to your next checkup?" I nodded. He smiled, stood up. "I'll step out for a bit, then I'll go with you." Before leaving, he even asked if I wanted cake from the old shop. I smiled and answered, watching him drive away, his figure fading into the afternoon sun. Then I picked up my phone, called Anna to pick me up downstairs. We followed his car and arrived at the hospital, where I saw him gently holding Lily by the waist. She wore loose clothes, hiding the slight curve of her belly. Lily bit her lip, her voice reproachful. "What did you promise me?" James nodded repeatedly, scooping cake to feed her, his voice tender. So the cake wasn't bought especially for me. I was only incidental. Affectionate and absorbed, they reveled in their reunion, oblivious to Anna and me, watching from afar. I walked slowly forward, snatching the ultrasound sheet from James's hand, my fingers brushing over the fragile paper. He looked up, his face turning pale, frozen, as if struck. "Olivia?" His voice cracked. I glanced at the paper, smiling faintly. 3 months already, the pregnancy is stable. Then I turned to him. "James, where are you planning to send her for prenatal care?" Lily clutched her stomach, whining. "Mrs. Smith, I just want to keep it." Her voice was weak, like an actress playing a melodramatic role. I gave a cold smile. "The right to have children is yours. You can have as many as you want." Then I turned to James, my gaze sharp as a blade. "If you have anything left to explain, say it all now." He gripped my hand tightly, refusing to let me leave. His voice choked. "Don't divorce me. Tell me how not to divorce." He stood there, both hands clenched tight as though making a vow. I knew he still loved me. At least, a fragment of love remained, just enough for me to use. "I don't want my child to have half-siblings," I said, then walked away. I never forced anyone. That was simply my condition. The choice belonged to the two of them. Through my investigation, I realized James was far more ruthless than I ever imagined. Whatever little love he still had for me had already vanished, replaced by resentment for the demands I made. After selling Starlight Tech, he was busy, or rather, avoiding me. I found him at a bar, the dim lights casting over his now haggard face. He was holding 2 women in heavy makeup, their loud laughter ringing out as he ordered more drinks. I stood there, calling his name. He glanced over, his eyes glazed. "Enough, Olivia." "I'm just entertaining clients," James sneered, his hoarse voice cutting. "Dragging out divorce again?" "Olivia Smith, the money from selling the company and the house has already gone to debt. If you divorce me now, you'll be left with nothing." I poured myself a glass of wine, the crimson liquid swirling, the bitterness sliding down my throat. "So you think I've been relying only on you?" I asked, my voice even. He shrugged, his tone softening as if to soothe. "What else?" "Your brother doesn't care about you either. I'm tired. Go home first." I nodded, obediently walking out. But the moment I stepped outside, I nearly bumped into a squad of police. From Anna's car, through the window, I watched James being handcuffed, his suit crumpled from struggling, his tie askew, looking pitiful like a beaten man. He saw me and tried to scream, "Olivia!" But I rolled the window shut. That was likely the last time we would meet. James had committed financial crimes. On paper, Starlight Tech was solely under his name. 2 years ago, he and Lily, the company's accountant, and several others siphoned funds to establish a real estate company under another name. They bought land, heavily promoted a housing project, and lured in buyers' money. But instead of building houses, he funneled it into other ventures, losing everything. Buyers never received their apartments. When I awoke, he feared I would uncover the truth, so he falsified records, intentionally crashing Starlight Tech's value, then sold it to himself at minimal cost, attempting to seize my shares. The proceeds from my shares were used to pay off his debts. James thought it was seamless, but I had investigated thoroughly. After his arrest, he denied everything, his voice trembling in court. But someone he never expected testified. Lily Harper. She brought in the real records, shattering his every excuse. Alongside her were the two employees he had once fired. James collapsed in the defendant's seat, his eyes red, questioning Lily. "Why did you betray me?" She only replied coldly, "Because people are selfish." I had once said those very words to Lily in a hospital room when she lay weak after losing the baby. At my request, James had reclaimed all the gifts he gave her: bags, jewelry, cars. She lived miserably in a small rented room, eyes swollen from crying. I had brought her to the hospital, cared for her, placed a vase of white lilies on the windowsill, their gentle fragrance filling the air. "You won," she whispered faintly. "You must hate me, right?" "Why should I hate you?" I replied, placing another flower in the vase, the sunlight making it gleam. "If it wasn't you, it would have been someone else. When a man wants to cheat, it has nothing to do with the women." Lily looked at me, her eyes searching, as if trying to detect falsehood. I sat down, my voice calm. "He must have promised you. Just hold on a little longer, and he'll make it up to you." Her face went pale, her lips trembling. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb," I cut in, raising my hand to silence her. "You were the accountant of Starlight Tech. You must have helped him with plenty of things. When it all unravels, who will be the first to take the blame?" Her breathing grew ragged, clutching the blanket tight. "A man who's cruel even to his own child. Do you really think he loved you?" I pressed, my tone icy. Her eyes widened as if seeing a ghost. "You know everything? You're putting on an act?" "Yes," I admitted plainly. "If he had agreed to divorce, I would have let it go. But since he wanted to deceive me, I'll make sure he never rises again." Lily burst out angrily. "Don't you love him? He clearly loves you." I curled my lips into a smile. "People are selfish. He loved me, but he loved money too." I showed her a few photos, James secretly with other women, not just her. "My sins aren't light either," she said shakily, fear in her voice. "Don't be afraid," I told her gently. "He forced you into all of it, didn't he?" Lily blinked, as if awakening. "Yes, he forced me." I agreed to help reduce her sentence, supporting her grandparents with some money. Honestly, I never hated her. Every fault, every wound was James's doing. James was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Lily, thanks to the lawyer I found for her, served 2 years, a light price for mistakes that weren't entirely her choice. The assets of the real estate company were frozen. Every dollar returned to the customers who had been deceived. The sale contract of Starlight Tech was annulled due to James's fraudulent actions, and I, still the largest shareholder, stood firm amidst the storm he had created. The company wavered, but it was only a ripple on the surface of a lake I had learned to keep calm. My brother, his gaze as cold as ever, bought back 10% of my shares, transferring a large sum into my account, a silent compensation unspoken. I looked at the figure on the screen, smiling without sound. The truth was, I was already very wealthy. When my father passed away, he left me a vast inheritance, quietly managed by Anna, an amount enough to build an empire. At first, I hadn't told James, because I had discovered he was flirting with other women. Even a suspicion was enough to keep me cautious. So I kept a way out. People are selfish by nature. When in love, I was ready to give everything. But once betrayed, what reason did I have to remain sincere? When James asked to see me, I refused. For the rest of my life, we would never meet again. I stood before the window of my new apartment, the morning light softly painting gold across the trees in the park. Each morning, I brewed coffee, the warm aroma filling the room, opened my laptop, and checked emails from the Starlight tech team. Just last month, the company launched a new mobile game, bringing in $100 million in revenue, the figures dancing across the screen like stars in the night. I smiled, my eyes shimmering, not because of the money, but because I had found myself again, the woman who once dreamed big, who once fell and now stood tall, proud as a free wind. My youth held a terrible love, but also the fiery days of building something from nothing, comrades like Anna, and a fortune not only of money, but of survival's lessons. I once thought James was my entire world, but now my world is quiet mornings, a hot cup of coffee in my hands, the sound of birdsong outside my window, and the dream I rebuilt with my own hands. I'm no longer Olivia of the days of pain, no longer the girl waiting for an apology. I'm Olivia Smith, the woman who walked out of the darkness carrying her own light. Love may shatter, but a heart that knows how to heal will always find peace.